The first time the therapist looked at me like I was the one in danger. My husband was sitting 10 feet away in the waiting room, shaking like a scared child. And somehow, by the end of that afternoon, I was the one apologizing. My name is Lena. I'm 43 years old. I work as a billing coordinator at a dental office, and for almost 20 years, I have been married to a man named Daniel. Daniel is 50. He's the kind of man strangers like immediately. He opens doors. He remembers birthdays. He jokes with cashiers. He sends thank you notes. If you met him at a barbecue, you'd probably walk away thinking I was lucky. And maybe that's what made it so confusing for so long, because Daniel's anger didn't look like broken lamps or holes in walls. It looked like precision. It looked like waiting until the bedroom door was shut, until the car was moving, until our daughter had gone upstairs. Then it came out in these cold, sharp sentences that landed exactly where they would do the most damage. He knew my weak spots, like a locksmith knows tumblers. If I forgot something, I was useless. If I cried, I was performing. If I tried to defend myself, he'd smile without warmth and say, "See, this is why nobody can talk to you." The words changed. The feeling didn't. For years, I told myself it wasn't abuse because he always calmed down, because he never touched me, because the next morning he'd make coffee and ask if I wanted oat milk like nothing had happened. Because love, I had learned, can make you doubt the evidence of your own skin. Our daughter Rosie is 13. She has Daniel's dark eyes and my habit of chewing the inside of her cheek when she's anxious. She's quiet in the way observant children get quiet, not shy, just watchful. She notices moods the way some kids notice weather. That morning, Daniel had an appointment with a therapist for the first time in his life. He'd been nervous all week, pacing the kitchen, muttering that therapy was for people who need someone to clap for them while they blame their parents. But he went. And when he asked if Rosie and I would come with him for support, I said yes before I really thought about why he wanted witnesses for his bravery. The office sat in a brick building between a tax preparer and a nail salon. Inside, everything smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet. There was a fountain in the corner trying too hard to sound peaceful. Daniel kept bouncing his knee. "This is humiliating," he whispered. "It's just an appointment," I said softly. Rosie sat beside me, arms folded tight over her stomach. She wasn't on her phone. That alone told me how tense she was. A woman in her late 50s opened the door and smiled. "Daniel?" He stood up too fast. "That's me." She introduced herself as Dr. Hart, then looked at Rosie and me. "You came for support?" Daniel answered for us. "Yeah, my family means everything to me." Dr. Hart gave a polite nod and led him back. The waiting room got very quiet after that. Rosie stared at the fountain. "You okay?" I asked. She shrugged, but her eyes stayed fixed on the water. "Do you think he'll tell her the real reason he gets mad?" That question sat between us like something alive. "I don't know," I said. She nodded once, like she'd expected that answer. 20 minutes later, Dr. Hart came back and asked if I could step into her office alone for a moment. The walk from the waiting room to that office couldn't have been more than 15 feet, but I felt my pulse in my throat the whole way. Daniel was turned away from me when I entered. He was looking out the window, arms crossed. Dr. Hart closed the door behind me and motioned for me to sit. Her voice was calm. "Lena, I want to ask you something privately, and I need you to answer as honestly as you can." My hands tightened in my lap. "Does Daniel struggle with anger at home?" And there it was. Not stress, not communication issues, not marital tension. Anger. I remember staring at the grain of her desk while my whole body seemed to split down the middle. One part of me was the wife who had spent 2 decades protecting his image, the loyal one, the one who translated his cruelty into, "He's just overwhelmed." The other part was the mother sitting in a waiting room with a 13-year-old girl who had learned to read footstep pressure on the stairs. I swallowed. Yes. Dr. Hart didn't react much, which somehow made it easier and worse. What does that look like? My mouth went dry. It's verbal, I said. He says very hurtful things when he's angry. He can be cruel. He turns things around. He makes me feel like I'm the one hurting him for reacting. Dr. Hart nodded slowly. Has Rosie been exposed to that? I looked up at her then. Yes, I whispered. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not dramatically, not loudly. Just a clean internal sound, like ice giving way under weight it was never meant to hold. Dr. Hart thanked me. She said she appreciated my honesty. She said it mattered. Mattered. Such a small word for the amount of guilt it can stir up in a woman who has spent years making herself smaller to keep peace. When I stepped back into the waiting room, Daniel looked at my face and immediately knew. He didn't say anything in front of Dr. Hart or Rosie. He waited until we got into the car. That was his gift. Timing. The doors shut. His seatbelt clicked. Then he turned toward the passenger seat and asked in this low, flat voice, "What did you tell her?" I kept my eyes forward. She asked me if you have anger issues. And I told her the truth. Rosie was in the back seat. I could feel her body go still. Daniel gave a short laugh with no humor in it. Unbelievable. I started the car. She asked me directly, I said. You could have had my back. I gripped the steering wheel harder. Having your back isn't the same thing as lying. That was when he went quiet. And Daniel's quiet was always worse than shouting. It meant he was selecting words. Finally, he said, "You know what this proves?" I didn't answer. That you don't really love me. Because if you loved me, you wouldn't hand my worst moments to a stranger. Rosie made a tiny sound from the back, almost like she wanted to disappear before the sentence reached her, too. The rest of the drive home felt like being trapped underwater. Inside the house, Daniel went straight upstairs and shut the bedroom door so hard the family picture in the hallway tilted sideways. I stood in the kitchen staring at the fruit bowl like I had no idea what kitchens were for. Then Rosie said, "Mom?" I turned around. She was holding her backpack against her chest with both arms. "Did you lie?" The question hit me harder than anything Daniel had said. "No," I said. She nodded. Then, after a pause, "Good." That should have comforted me. Instead, it scared me. Because children don't say good like that unless they've been carrying something heavy for a long time. I sat down at the table, and Rosie sat across from me. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she slowly unzipped her backpack and pulled out a folded yellow notebook. "I wasn't going to show you this," she said. "I thought maybe it would make things worse." My stomach dropped. "Show me what?" She opened it. Every page had dates. Some had times. Some had weather symbols drawn in pen. Sunny, cloudy, storm. I frowned, not understanding at first. Then I read one entry. February 14th, storm. Dad called Mom selfish because dinner was late. Another. March 3rd, cloudy until 8:40. Dad said Mom ruins everything. Another. April 22nd, storm. Stayed in room with headphones. I looked up at Rosie, and my hands were shaking. What is this? Her eyes filled immediately, like she had been holding those tears behind a locked door. It's how I keep track, she said. So I know what kind of night it's gonna be. I couldn't breathe for a second. That's not normal, right? She asked me. Other kids don't do that? And there it was, the twist that split my world open. I had spent years convincing myself Daniel's anger was mostly between him and me. But Rosie had built a private forecasting system for her father's moods. She was 13 years old and living like a hostage to atmospheric pressure. I moved to her side of the table so fast my chair scraped the floor. No, I said, pulling her into me. No, baby, that's not normal. She buried her face in my shoulder and started sobbing. Not loud, not dramatic. The kind of crying that sounds old. I thought if I knew the signs, she whispered, I could keep you both from fighting. That sentence will haunt me for the rest of my life. Children should not believe peace is their job. Upstairs, I heard the bedroom door open. Daniel came down looking wrung out, but not sorry. He stopped when he saw us. What now? He asked. I stood up slowly, the notebook still in my hand. Rosie wiped her face and stepped behind me. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What is that? I held it up. Your weather report. He stared at me, then at Rosie, then back at me. This is ridiculous, he said. No, I replied, and for the first time in years, my voice didn't shake. Ridiculous is a 13-year-old girl documenting your moods so she knows when to hide. His face changed then, not into remorse, into offense. You're turning her against me. Rosie flinched. I stepped forward. No, your behavior did that. He laughed once, angry and disbelieving. So now I'm the villain? Because I get frustrated? Because I say things I don't mean? I could feel 20 years of swallowed sentences pressing at the back of my teeth. You don't get to call it frustration after what it's done to this house. His jaw tightened. I said I was nervous today. I went to therapy. I tried, and you humiliated me. You were not humiliated by the truth, I said. You were exposed to it. For a second, I thought he might say something devastating enough to split the room in half. Instead, he looked at Rosie, and in a softer voice, the dangerous kind, the one designed to sound wounded, he said, Do you really think I'm that bad? Rosie's fingers closed around the back of my shirt. I realized then that he wasn't asking because he wanted to know. He was asking because he wanted comfort from the child his anger had frightened. That was the moment I stopped hoping the right combination of patience and honesty would fix this. Don't do that, I said. His eyes snapped to me. Do what? Make her responsible for your feelings. Silence. Then I said the hardest thing I had ever said in my own house. You need help. Real help. And until you get it, until your therapist says it's safe, and until Rosie feels safe, we are not doing this the same way anymore. His expression shifted. What's that supposed to mean? It means, tonight, Rosie and I are staying with my sister. He stared at me like I had slapped him. You're leaving? I'm protecting our daughter. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried one last time. If you walk out right now, don't pretend this marriage mattered to you. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man who had confused control with love for so long he no longer knew the difference. Then I answered, "If I didn't love you, I would have kept lying." My sister lived 20 minutes away. Rosie fell asleep in the car with dried tears on her cheeks. That night, after she was tucked into the guest room, I sat on the edge of the bathtub and cried so hard I got dizzy. Not because I thought I had ruined my marriage, because I realized how long I had let pain introduce itself as normal. The next morning, Dr. Hart called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She told me Daniel had contacted her, angry about what I'd shared. She also told me something else. "Lena," she said carefully, "telling the truth in a therapeutic setting is not betrayal. It's information. And information is necessary for change." I closed my eyes and let that settle where guilt had been. Information is necessary for change. Not silence. Not image management. Not loyalty built on concealment. Over the next few weeks, Daniel sent long texts, some apologetic, some accusatory, some so self-pitying they almost pulled me back in. But once you hear your child ask if fear is normal, the spell starts to break. Rosie began sleeping through the night at my sister's house. She laughed more. She stopped watching doors. Daniel did continue therapy. I'll give him that. Whether he changed in the ways that mattered most, that took longer, and some parts never changed enough. But this story isn't really about whether a man can learn to live with his own anger. It's about the moment a woman stops confusing silence with love. It's about what honesty costs and what it saves. Did I do the right thing? That question used to keep me up at night. Now I think the better question is this: what would have happened if I'd taught my daughter that truth should always come second to a man's comfort? I don't ask that anymore because I know the answer. And I can live with being called cruel by someone who needed my silence to stay comfortable. What I couldn't live with was watching my daughter grow up believing home is a place where everyone learns to whisper around one person's temper. So no, I should not have kept my mouth shut. I should have opened it years earlier. And if there's a lesson in all of this, it's one I had to learn the hard way. Love does not demand dishonesty to survive. And the truth is not what broke my family. The truth is what finally showed me where it was already broken.